Well, hello and welcome everybody to Origin Academy's channel. This is our very first interview with our very own Kerry McGregor. So, Kerry, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to the trainees and participants that are watching
Sure.
today?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kerry McGregor. I am an interior designer and aging in place specialist. I've been with Origin for over 15 years now. And my love for Origin started when my mom would take me to visit a long-term care community and visit one of her friends there. And I really was taken aback by the environment, the lack of empathy, the lackluster spaces. And I knew in my heart I would be involved in improving the lives of seniors. I then went on, I'm talking about previously, I studied interior design, worked with multiple residential design companies, but I didn't feel there was any purpose behind designing spaces for the rich. And I wanted more. I wanted something that meant more. And it was really a serendipitous moment when I met Neil, our CEO, at a project we were working on in Mississauga in the GTA. It was a continuing care community, 300 units, a massive flagship community of ours. Neil took me on and created a role for me within Origin. And now 15 years later, I'm blessed to still be with Origin and working on improving the lives of seniors through the communities that we design and operate.
Oh, I love it. I love those stories, right? Like when we reflect on the moments that kind of like called us or got us really interested or passionate about working with older adults, I just go, because I have mine too. One day I'll share it. We won't
Yes,
do it today because it'll take too long.
I would love to hear one day for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely do that. That's a good idea for a training session, actually. So maybe we can talk a little bit about, well, what is aging in place and like, how do you do that through interior design?
Mm-hmm. Well, aging in place, by definition, is any design process, modification, or outcome that helps someone continue to live independently or semi-independently in their home as they get older. So we incorporate features such as step-free entrances, wider doorways, hallways, of course, bathroom safety features such as non-slip floors, grab bars, walk-in showers, and raised toilet seats. In the kitchen, key features such as wall ovens and microwaves that are installed at a convenient height, lower work counters that can be used if you're in a seated position, and a variety of light levels, which is critically important. There's a lot of new things with technology as well for safety and security products and home health. And then we also look at storage in every room to help provide ease of use and minimize bending.
Mm. I actually, I remember in some of my past work, I actually was talking to a gentleman once who was a family member of a resident. And he said to me, have you ever sat in a wheelchair and just walked around to see how accessible everything is around here? Like,
That's
no, I
actually
haven't,
very
and I
smart.
should,
Yeah,
right?
to put ourselves in other people's shoes, right? And really see things from their perspective. And I like to, when I go in to visit our communities after we've set them up and designed the space, it's important for me to look around and observe how people are using the space and, what we need to layer onto that because we're always looking to improve, right? To improve the experience and the, you know, allow spaces to be used to the fullest, right, for our residents.
Yeah. So talking about sort of, looking at it from the other person's angle, like looking at it, taking a mile or a step in their shoes, maybe not a mile. And you said that you have to pay attention to how people are using the space. Can you talk about, because I think that would be a very cool topic to kind of just tell the companions, especially, like, what are you paying attention to? What are you looking for to help you know if the space is accommodating the resident or the person who's living in that home, for example?
Yeah, I think for the wellness companion, it's important to look at many aspects of the person's life, any medical issues, or if they are a fall risk. When providing the environmental assessment, it's important to first observe the client in the space so that we can identify safety concerns and include family members so that we can obtain a clear picture of the situation. And then this information will determine the design modifications needed to support the client, right? Aging at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like, if if somebody was, hesitant to kind of, you know, partner with us to take that step, sometimes I think that cost is a factor, right? So like, how can you use costs and keep them low for somebody who is, needing to make some adjustments, but may not have necessarily a big budget to do?
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of small modifications that can be done. Like grab bars are very cost effective. There's also, there's a lot of grants that are actually offered now through the government where it's not necessarily a grant. I guess it's more of a tax. It's taxable at the end, so you can write off some of those expenses to modify your home to age in place. So a lot of people don't realize that the government actually offers these incentives so that we can keep people at home as long as possible.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, most seniors want to remain in their home for as long as possible. So
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do is help them with that.
Yeah. I think the stat in our training program says 90%
Yes.
want
Yep.
to stay at home.
Exactly. Yeah. And bringing the supports to them, right? So that's critical with our service for the companions, just helping facilitate some of those
Yeah.
and coordinate some of those services, right?
So you're in Ontario, we're in Alberta, and I know
Yes.
we've got also, we're going to hopefully be across Canada. We were also in BC, but just because there are different provinces, do you know with regards to the government grants and the help financially that you can get from the government, is it province to province? Is it nationwide? How would you recommend somebody look into that?
Yes, I believe it's Canada wide. It's nationwide. So it's an incentive program through the Canadian government. So it's not specific to each province.
Okay.
But I can certainly provide more information on that later to allow, give that tool to the companions to
Yeah.
offer that information.
Yeah, let's do that because, I think it's always important in this work to remove as many barriers as possible.
Yes.
What might be some other barriers or challenges that we would deal with when it comes to, having conversations with people around the design to age in place?
Yeah, I think a lot of people they're not thinking of the future. They're really it's some of the needs are happening when a crisis happens. So a lot of times, it's hard to get people thinking of the space prior to anything happening and just thinking about, how do we look at things as we age? And because people are used to living in the way they, maybe they've been in their home for 50 years and they're used to the steps being too high or they're used to, certain things, right? And a lot of people are trying to be conscious of what they're spending. And, we all live in this climate right now, right? So just really focusing on the fundamentals of living safely at home and starting ahead if we can anticipate the needs change as we get older. So ultimately, what we want to do is provide a plan to allow an individual to live safely and independently at home. Ideally, again, it starts early on, focusing on preventing or reducing renovations needed to make a home functional and accessible. So just again, thinking forward and not just when a crisis happens,
Yeah.
and really starting that conversation with our loved ones, right?
I was
And
going
our
to ask you,
parents.
yeah,
Yeah.
when's the best
Yes.
time? And what you're
Yes.
saying is anytime.
Yes. Yeah. And just, making sure that we have the structure, the backing and the walls to add future grab bars. And now there's a lot of products now that can be incorporated at a low cost if we think of it early on. And a lot of people are living in multi-generational homes, right? So we have to think about everyone using the space and universal design features so that anyone can visit the space, right?
I know with all of the emphasis on, renovating, and I have a friend who's actually renovating her home and she's adapting it with thoughts that her mother might live with her someday, like not even today, but like someday.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yeah.
why don't we just make all houses like
Yes.
from the beginning this way,
I know, because even, moms with strollers or whatever the case, right? It's a step-free entrance. a wider doorway, right? Those are universal design features that just are, again, I use that term future proofing a lot because we don't know what the future is going to hold and what, our needs could change if there is an injury or a surgery. Or so instead of trying to quickly modify things as a crisis or something arises, if we think forward, think prior to that. And, so I think a lot of education needs to be done with the older population to just wrap their head around how we can start to incorporate things early on.
So, I mean, this is an essential piece to be able to age in place. I mean, like if something were to happen to you physically or even cognitively that you weren't able to move physically, you're going to need an adapted space. It's just, there's no way around it. So how do we get people to live for today and plan for tomorrow? Like, how do we get them to see the possibilities so that they're a little bit more attracted to or open, right, to making some of these shifts? What would you recommend?
I think basically talking to them about, what are their wishes and goals and hopes and dreams, right? And really looking at it from, an individual's perspective and just allowing them to just look at the future, right? And think about how do I want to live, how do I want to live my life going forward, and having that conversation. And just incorporating some of those simple modifications that can reduce any risks of falls, because I think a lot of seniors are afraid of that in certain areas, like the bathroom and the slippery walkway up to your front entrance. So that would actually alleviate a lot of anxiety that people are already feeling, but I think they are not sure of how to address that. So there's some key modifications that are cost effective and universal that can be talked about and addressed easily. Yeah.
And because when I'm hearing you talk, it's like, I hear there are some pro things that are approach, goals, you could say, the values and the goals and the quality of life, what they'd like to see. And then there's also some avoid goals, which are like the fear of falling, there's some real fears and anxieties out there. And so really listening for those to be able to offer to say, did you know that this is possible, that we can put a grab bar here, or we can adapt yourself? Like there's there's possibilities out there. And then is it best for somebody to then have a conversation with somebody like you, who's a designer? Like what would be next step after you can kind of get them to be open, to the possibilities, or at least to look at what the possibilities could be? What would be the next step, like as a wellness companion?
I think for contacting an aging in place specialist like myself to provide more detailed information and solutions on that would be important, because occupational therapists really have a role in this as well, where they're looking at how to safely use the spaces and to avoid injury, and also to get them back to living life independently, right? So it's a combination of a team, right, of individuals, and the wellness companions have a role in that as well, to provide that that support, to maybe have that conversation around bringing in the right professionals to make this happen. So aging in place specialists it's more common now. You're seeing there's a lot of different companies out there that you can contact regarding that, and it's just doing kind of more thorough assessment after the wellness companions do that and identify hazards, and then we can really open up that conversation as to where would those grab bars go, and making sure the appropriate heights, and the just different could be furniture or equipment that's needed. So
hearing you talk makes me think that even when you're a wellness companion, it could even be a conversation with family, just depending on your client and where they are, if they're their own decision maker, if they're not. And then I also feel like, after hearing you talk, that it's probably, and you can tell me if you agree or not, but it's probably more so the role of a wellness companion to watch, to look to identify and to bring awareness to. So then they can hand off resources, basically.
Exactly.
So,
yes.
yeah, okay.
Yes. And that's why I think it's important with the initial assessment just to observe how the client's using the space and any obstacles or any things that are in the way, right? And then documenting and communicating with the family.
Can you share with me like a story, something you've actually seen like in real time that happened and how you kind of overcame that through, design?
Yeah, sure. When it comes to even my parents, I'm having to, work through some obstacles and just the mindset, right? And trying to have conversations to help just help them understand really what's needed, because both of my parents require different supports, right? So when it comes to the exterior pathway and the step being a bit too high, I worked through that with my dad, and we came up with a solution together. So it's not, it's not saying you need to do this, and we want to make sure that we're still, treating people with dignity and respect, right, and not giving them options of different solutions, and cost effective is always top of mind. But even still, I'm slowly working through the process with them, and I know to go through it at a certain pace and not too overwhelming, right? So that's sort of one of the situations I'm working through now, because my main experience is in designing communities, our continuing care communities, memory care, assisted living. So actually, when it comes to putting these practices in place in a person's home, it's something that I'm still working on, and I'm still obtaining that level of experience. So it's bringing the fundamentals of design and looking at the key spaces in senior communities, and then, putting that into practice in someone's home.
I say, what's an example of something that you've done in a community, and how can it translate into somebody's home? Because I'm sure many of us, many of us in this industry are very accustomed to working in communities. And
yes,
to bring up a very valid, I guess, thought is like, well, how does that translate to at home, right?
yes. Well, I think for sure the grab bars and this step-free or built-in showers that we incorporate in our suites.
Yep.
So all of those elements, the non-slip flooring and the widened doorways. Also, color contrast is key when we're
talk about that
spaces.
one. That's I
Yes.
love talking about that one, because no one thinks that. I'm thinking about that with my parents already too, because they're gonna paint their house, and I'm like, did you know?
Yes, it's true. Like even when it comes to the color of your seat to the floor, right? And the tabletop to the floor, just having some contrast, and also the edges. We, sometimes don't think of that when purchasing residential furniture for our homes. Seniors have, their skin is quite thin, right? And having rounded corners, bull nose corners are really important. So, and the correct type of armchair that has grips that you can, allows you to stand up safely, right? So, a lot of times people are using side chairs or chairs that are not very stable or well made. But, and other features are materials like a polyvinyl on the seat, which we use at our communities for infection control and moisture barrier. And it looks like leather. It looks quite nice too. So just, maybe having upholstering kitchen chairs in that over a fabric that's going to hold in odors and moisture and things. We want to avoid that.
Yeah. When it comes to the wall and the floor, what do you look for in terms of color contrast? What works best?
So for the floor, we're looking at a surface that has some type of texture. So we would go with an unglazed, if we were doing, let's say, a porcelain tile in an entrance, it would be an unglazed tile that gives us that slip resistant quality. And then there's other floors that, in a home like environment, like cork floor or an engineered hardwood, it has that bit of a texture. There's also a luxury vinyl plank that's a nice durable wood look that we use a lot. And then, bringing in pops of color throughout, color that can stimulate our appetite, like in the kitchen, a pop of red. It's really does affect how we feel in our mood. Like in the bedroom, we do more of a restful blue green or something that would not stimulate, but the opposite, right? Yes, yeah, yeah. So yeah.
And then what about for you said to highlight certain things with a brighter color. So you mentioned to stimulate appetite in the kitchen with red. So would that mean like your coffee machine was red? Like what would be red?
Yeah, we could do a pop of color, like maybe it's an accent wall that just ties in the backsplash or adds a bit of vibrancy. And the counter, a lot of times people will choose like a speckly type of counter, and we like to avoid that, especially in the bathrooms or, medication or things that it's nice to have a darker solid surface. That again is in contrast to the other surfaces, and under cabinet lighting really helps with that too, because it illuminates the work surfaces. Yeah.
My mother-in-law just renovated her condo, and she's got, so for her hardwood, she has well, it's real wood, but it's hand sanded. So it has those like natural, grooves.
Yes.
So that's really good. And it's not like, I would say it's matte to slightly glossy. It's not like a high sheen or anything like that. But in her kitchen, we put the undermountain lighting. And it's so bright. And I can only imagine what that will do for her. She's going to make a tea the next time, like everything is so illuminated. So that's so good.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about bathrooms, for example? What's a good idea in terms of contrast or what to highlight in my bathroom?
Yes. So in the bathroom, lighting is critical, but bringing it down to like eye level. So like 2 wall sconces on either side, or even I've seen the mirrors that have that lighting that's illuminated around.
Yeah.
So, and it's a clearer light, and LED lights are really in now too, because it's, they last a long time. They're very efficient as well. And now there's bidets that are very affordable that you can incorporate onto your existing toilet. And then, because what that ultimately does is allows someone to live with dignity independently, again, as long as possible at home. It also helps with a lot of, issues that could happen, right?
Just with regards to cleanliness, right? Body cleanliness. Yeah.
Yes. And then just the correct placement of grab bars as well. When entering the shower, if there is a bath, we would recommend in the future converting that to a walk-in shower, just to avoid any issues. So a grab bar along the back horizontally, and one as you step into the shower, and having a non-slip surface on the bottom, whether that's mosaic tile or a bath mats can be, if it's not a well-made heavy duty style, they can be hazardous as well. So ideally the surface is non-slip when outside of the shower. And with bath mats, those can also be an issue, but there's a lot of new products out there too that are very low profile, that are rubber backed, and they really adhere. They don't move around like the fluffy bath mats that can really cause issues.
What about area rugs?
Yes, so area rugs are a no-no. So that we don't recommend those in the living areas, because and if they really do want one, then carpet tape that can really adhere them down to the floor, and a low pile area rug. But in our communities, what we do is we build that into the design, so it's actually set into the floor, so it has a zero, like a flush
It's flush. Yeah, it makes
transition.
sense. Yeah.
And it's the seams are welded, so it
Yeah.
looks like an area rug and it gives that warmth, but it's practical. So
Yeah. Oh, I love
mhm.
that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of your wisdom. I want to make sure that I honor your time, and I think we've covered a good chunk of stuff, but I also wanted to ask you if there's anything you think that I've missed, because I'm not an expert in your field. So would there
Oh,
be anything you would add?
there there's so many things to consider, and I feel like we've just touched on some of the items, but I think I think I've touched on all the main principles and the overall view of things when it comes to aging in place design. But again, I think we would need to have another call to get into more detail, but this is
Well,
a
we could
good
do part
overall.
2.
Yes,
Yeah.
we could. Yeah.
So this is a good intro. Oh, awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for watching, everybody, and good luck looking and just becoming more aware of what it means to age in place.
Thank you, Josephine.
Thanks, Kerry.
Thank you. Have a great day.